Hello everyone, welcome back. It's me, Onyx Hollow, and we're here back at it again with Worlds Episode 2. This is my own original series of mapping that is basically a whole bunch of countries from different timelines all coming into the same timeline, and it's a whole bunch of chaos. So, if you saw the last episode, you'd know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen that, go watch it because this won't make sense because a lot of things will not have any context. But some things still don't have context. Most of these earlier episodes in the series will be basically filling in on a lot of the different countries throughout the world. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump right on into this video. Now we're going to pick up right where we left off with China, as in the end of the last episode we saw the South Chinese, which I explained this in the last episode, but the South Chinese were initially a country in Taiwan, Hong Kong, Macau, and a few settlements over near Hainan, and they basically took over all of this southern region of China before this universe kind of came into fruition. So it's kind of been a conflict that's been brewing, but this world's only been a thing for 5 years, a little over now, maybe like 6 years after this universe formed. So there has definitely been some stuff happening between these two, which are from the same timeline, by the way. Some of the other countries nearby are from different timelines, but these two, they're from the same timeline. Now, we saw that the South began a conquest to reunite China under a democratic flag. And so, let's jump right on into this conflict. As seen in the last episode, South Chinese forces began invading on multiple different fronts. One of the fronts they have a lot of success with is the front all the way over in the west, because there isn't much out over here. If I go ahead and enable the major cities map, I guess I'm proven wrong, but there are more over here. But there are 4 cities over here, and the South Chinese will kind of just roll through these as if there's nothing here, like I was saying. But that area is where they see the most success. However, as the war continues to drag on, more and more these fronts begin to slow down. The middle will slow down, and at the same time we also see the front in the east slowing down. And then we see the reverse happening. Northern Chinese forces will begin to push back against the South Chinese, mostly in the east, but also in this middle area a little bit towards this major city here, because they want to defend that, because it's a pretty populated city, I believe. I might be mixing it up with one of these ones. I'm pretty sure it's the former capital Nanking that this one is, or it's this one. You know what, don't ask me about China knowledge because quite frankly I don't know. But yeah, continuing on with this, the South Chinese will continue to see success in the west as China, well, North China more specifically, is not really concerned about this front right now. Like, they can bear to lose this land, but this land is much more valuable and it's a lot easier to defend because there are a lot more troops over here, but you have all your population here. So they're basically throwing all their troops at cities, which are much harder to take than, say, open territory over here. So yeah, South China is having a lot of trouble in this region, whereas over here, they're not. And let's go ahead and look at a different conflict for now. And we move right on south to Southeast Asia and Indonesia, which in this timeline, they united most of Southeast Asia, but by the time this world formed, they had already begun their decline. And between the 5 years that happened and the formation of the universe here, they had a little more land here, but they lost it to this Philippine country, and they also had Brunei. The thing about Brunei, though, is Brunei should not be independent. Brunei was a independent country from our timeline that made it into this timeline. However, when this universe started, Brunei was immediately taken over, and it was treated like a small rebellion in Indonesia. But eventually, it kind of like subtly came back, and a border was established. And the Indonesian government couldn't really do much about it. So now, they're kind of just sending their whole military force at it. And if you know anything about Brunei, it's that they're pretty darn small and invadable. So, yeah, that's not where this conflict ends necessarily. Because although they gain full control over the country, it doesn't exactly fall. There's going to be a lot of guerrilla warfare here, and eventually we see the whole country doing the exact same thing it did before. And then they do something that the Indonesians could not have seen coming. They send an invading force out, and it does well. Like, really well. It pushes out really far. They take out this much territory. And Indonesia is like confused. Like, how on earth is this small group doing this? Well, it turns out, after what had happened and Brunei came back, they kinda had a crisis where there may have been a super militaristic guy who kinda just killed half the population until they made him the leader. So, yeah, this guy's crazy, and he's just kinda throwing meat shields at the Indonesians to keep his country alive. Eventually, though, that falls apart. It's not gonna work forever because your population is very limited. And once again, yeah, bye. And this time, they won't return because he has no people left, and he kind of got taken prisoner by the Indonesians. But this will kind of be painted in the military leader's kind of like picture frame. Like, it's completely filled. Exactly what he wanted to happen in the scenario of him losing happened. Now, Indonesia is viewed as a country who just commit multiple different genocides over in this area, or specifically over here in this area, in Brunei itself, and over by this major city. And, while that necessarily doesn't bring Brunei back, it's gonna start something even worse. A massive rebellion over here in this part of Malaysia. That is not good. Very quickly, it will take over the occupation in Brunei, and it will send a whole bunch of crazy demands to the Indonesian government that they don't like. But seeing that the entire global community is now looking at them like they just killed a whole bunch of people who weren't using a whole bunch of horde techniques against them, Indonesia's kind of in a really bad situation that they're just gonna have to give up because there's literally nothing they could do that wouldn't make this comeback stronger. So for now, they're just gonna have to let it go. So let's go ahead and look at how they sort of deal with this situation. Now looking at this peace treaty, we can see that Brunei no longer exists. However, in the northern part of Borneo, a much larger rebellious state exists, also controlled by a really crazy military guy. Not from Brunei though, it's from this major city which they made capital. This guy was from Brunei, but he kind of blended in, so he like pretended he was a part of this group, and then when he became leader, he kind of just gave that whole thing up, and then just turned it into basically the exact same thing that Brunei was. I'm giving Brunei crazy lore, and that doesn't make any sense, but there you go, that's Brunei lore. Anyways, I feel like that's enough talking about this region. Let's go ahead and talk about a completely different region. Now moving over to the Horn of Africa with two particular countries, Ethiopia and Eritrea. Eritrea in this timeline has suffered a massive loss in this region. I'm blanking on what it's called right now. It starts with an A. But they lost that because Ethiopia beat them in a war, and now they want to get revenge for the Tigray war that happened in this province here. And so basically, they're just gonna kind of launch a huge invasion that they probably aren't capable of themselves, and they're gonna send their forces into this one province, claiming it. Now, there's not much different between the Eritrea and Ethiopia's in this timeline, other than Ethiopia absolutely obliterated Somalia. But Eritrea is basically the same, except they lost this. Ethiopia is basically the same, but they got this. No different kind of government styles. And the Tigray conflict here is pretty similar to how it is in real life. Although I don't know much about that conflict in particular, I do know that Eritrea is not winning this conflict. And so, not even 2 weeks after the invasion begins, they're gonna lose their entire front line. it's not even close. Ethiopia absolutely obliterates the Eritrean forces in this region, and then they pull an Uno reverse and kind of take half of Eritrea. So, like, maybe you shouldn't have done that, pal. And then they get coastline. That's rare. I mean, they did it already on this timeline, but, like, that's rare still. And then finally, we see the Eritrean government sitting down for a peace deal because they don't want to be wiped off the map. So, I know that event was quick, but let's see a peace treaty for it anyway. Alright, now that's peace treaty. Now looking at this peace treaty, yeah, as you can tell, the border gore is horrible, but Ethiopia literally took all of Eritrea's coast, and they turned them into a triangle. I'm sorry, Eritrea. I'm so sorry. I'm pretty sure YouTube's banned in that country, so I can't really apologize to anyone from there, because the chances of me, like, being able to tell that on, like, the statistics of this video are impossible. So, if anyone's still watching somehow, then I'm sorry. But, like, yeah, Eritrea, your country's absolutely cooked in this timeline. But they're still gonna exist. I mean, Ethiopia left them, so, I mean, it's not the worst it could be. But, definitely, yeah, you want to look into, probably not being that small in the future, so maybe they'll do something in a future episode. That might be them getting annexed by another country, but they might want to do something. Anyways, moving on to the next topic in this video, we're gonna head down over to South America. Why? Because Argentina over here is not doing so well. I'm gonna do a lot of lore here, so it's gonna be a lot. You might want to, like, look ahead in the video if you don't care much about the lore. But, yeah, we're gonna be here for a bit. Because we're talking about not just Argentina, but the entirety of South America. At least most of it. Because we already talked about this region up here. Now we're talking about, like, all of the rest of this down here, and plus a little bit of Brazil. So, yeah, let's talk about this. In this timeline, right before the universe was created, there used to be a massive federation in South America. It consisted of all of these countries here, including Bolivia, Chile, all these guys, and eventually this thing broke apart. However, the main problem with it is that most of these countries kind of had disputes within this thing because of a lot of the different provinces wanted to go with different countries that they were a part of than they had. Sorry, let me rephrase that. But a lot of these provinces wanted to go with different countries than that of what they were a part of when this union formed. For example, provinces over here were a part of Argentina, but they joined Chile, and parts of Uruguay over here went ahead and joined Argentina. So that's kind of like the main thing here. But also, it has a little bit thing. It has a few things to do with Paraguay and Brazil. Mostly Paraguay, though. Paraguay, in this timeline, is a kind of rogue state, and most countries in South America don't like them. We'll get to that more in a second, but they kind of took over a lot of Argentinian provinces, and they also kind of did a lot of damage to the Bolivian guys here, though Bolivia did come out with a little more land than they do in our timeline, but still they gained some land from Bolivia, more particularly this large province here. Bolivia had that, but now they don't. But yeah, Paraguay is kind of like a rogue state that kind of led to this whole thing falling. Initially, when this timeline was kind of forming, it's kind of like a weird program was selecting all the countries in this union as that union to come into this world. I'm not saying there's like a program that started this. I'm just trying to create unique lore. And they selected two countries from this timeline. The South American Federation that collapsed right before the thing formed, and also Paraguay. So half of this continent is from one timeline. But also Brazil, because in the 5 years since this formed, they also had a little bit of a thing to do with you. Because Paraguay may or may not have been funded by the Brazilians to maybe do a little bit of something with this giant Argentine country who's trying to bring back the Union. While they're not successful with it, Many countries are now reconsidering this idea of a union. More specifically, Uruguay and Patagonia are rethinking their choices and are kind of wanting it back. Like, they want to rejoin and form a new South American federation. However, Brazil's not having any of that, and so they're going to fund Paraguay into once again invading into Argentina in order to discourage this union. Basically, if you form this union again, you're going to get absolutely obliterated by us again. With promises of land and promises of much economic aid, Paraguay will be much up to the task. And with their unethical fighting style that doesn't reflect anything that's happened in real life, they're very quickly going to move south into Argentine territory, taking a major city within a matter of days. Multiple weeks later, they're eventually going to begin spearheading southwards, not with much goal in mind, just to kind of cause a whole bunch of chaos, but very quickly, the Argentinian public grows angry at the government for their handling of the war, even though it's been only a few weeks, but the public is absolutely outraged, and multiple rebellions will begin to happen. More specifically, we see a rebellion happening over here in the lands that chose to join with Argentina instead of joining Uruguay, and also some of the lands all the way down here in the south who chose to stay with Argentina instead of joining up with Patagonia. And there's also one more region, a region up here, one that Paraguay is particularly interested in. Why? Because it borders Bolivia. And in this timeline, Bolivia kind of whooped Paraguay in that war. Even though it didn't end up going in Bolivia's favor, Paraguay still wants revenge for that. So instead of kind of benefiting from these rebellions, they're going to shift their focus over to this one in order to wipe it out so they can gain this land hopefully when the war ends. So they can have an up against Bolivia if a war ever breaks out between them two. And yeah, half of this thing gets wiped out immediately. But then Brazil kind of just says, yo, if you continue to invade the rebellions that are helping us, then we're going to invade you. And I know you don't want that. We don't want that, but I know you don't want it more. So yeah, that's like how we're gonna go about this here. And so Paraguay will basically say, okay, as long as we're able to keep the lands we already have over here. Brazil is fine with that, but they're also still not. So eventually they will shift their focus back down south, but Paraguay is already kind of done with this war, and they're kind of just eventually gonna stop. And then the Argentine government will push them back. And it's not by a little, it's by a lot. You can tell that the Paraguayan morale has definitely gone down because they don't care for this war much anymore. Brazil's like, that's it, we're entering this war. And because they know Argentina will eventually wipe out these rebellions, they're gonna kind of just invade this rebellion and say, yo, we're helping, trust, we're gonna give it back to you after the end of the war. They don't say that, but they kind of just invade it anyway. And then they begin to push out, and at a certain point, it gets bad enough to where they're threatening their capital, where they basically say, yo, just give this war up, let Paraguay win, let us win, and we'll let you out of this alive. And Argentina, who's already been crippled enough, will agree to these terms. There's one more thing in there. You're not allowed to bring back the South American Union in any shape, way, or form. Meaning there can't be a large union in South America in this region guided by these regional countries ever again. One thing that is discreetly mentioned is that it's by a country within this region. Meaning they're not letting Argentina do it, they're not letting Paraguay do it, they're not letting Bolivia, Chile, any of these guys do it. But it's not saying that Brazil can't. I don't know if they think they can like create a union down here because they're invading it. But who knows? Maybe that's showing something in the future, maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just making a rant because I don't know what's gonna happen here yet because I've only written up to episode 4. But who knows? Anyways, that's enough yapping. Let's go ahead and see a peace treaty. Alright, and now this is the peace treaty that we're looking at for this war. And as you can see, Argentina is not liking it. First off, I'm going to talk about this area down here. Argentina made a special deal with them that allowed them to kind of convince them to stay in the Union. And so, yeah, they're not going to be leaving the Union, at least for now. Or, is Argentina a Union? I don't know. Well, not really, but, we call the United States a Union. It's kind of weird calling other countries that, now I think about it. Anyways, moving on with the peace treaty, we head on over to Brazil, who will annex the rest of Uruguay that Uruguay doesn't control, which is about half their former country. So yeah, Brazil now will go ahead and look like this, much larger, and, well, not much larger because they're already really large, that didn't really change much, but they're larger. Who really got the land though is Paraguay, who maybe honestly doubled in size. I can't really tell. Of course, with map distortions, it's also a little weirder to tell. But Paraguay definitely got a lot of land from this. And then there's this guy. I forget this Argentinian province's name, but it's the one all the way in this north area that looks really funky. The rebels took control of this, and they now want to get rid of Paraguay because they attacked them. So, yeah, now you have a rival, Paraguay. And, guess what? They're gonna use the same tactics as you. Foreshadowing. But that's not really foreshadowing, that's just me telling you what's gonna happen in the future. Anyways, I think that is enough for this event, as we're gonna head over right back down to China, or right back up to China, for the last update for this in this episode, at least. We're gonna finish it in the next episode, I promise. It's just gonna take a while to finish this, because this conflict is pretty big. And yeah, the South Chinese, they're gonna begin to cook China again in the central area. They are gonna push through the front line on the western area of this major city that China was defending so, desperately. And then they also see a lot of success in pushing into this major city. And then it kind of becomes worse as they also capture this major city, which is really concerning for China, because there are just a lot of major cities in this area now, and it looks like South China has a direct ticket into this region. However, on the opposite side of things, Northern China is successfully able to wipe out the entirety of the front lines over here. However, they're not going to continue invading yet, because they don't have the military might to do it right now. Plus, they want to shift their focus over to the western and central regions for now. Anyways, heading over to the last event in this episode, we head over to Central Europe as we look to Hungary and the disputed layer. I talked about this in the last episode, I believe, but Hungary has a lot of disputes with their neighbors. Austria, Slovakia, Eastern Yugoslavia, and Romania, and also Poland to an extent, but Poland doesn't care that much. And yeah, all these countries have kind of been waiting for an opportunity to absolutely obliterate Hungary. Now the time has come, because Romania is going to go ahead and be the first to send their forces over the border. And now at this point, Romanian forces will enter into Hungary and will begin to deal a lot of damage. Not gonna sit idly by, we also see Slovakia entering this war. They've gone a little more militaristic than in real life, and they're gonna take a major city pretty quickly. But outside of that, their forces are pretty slow in comparison to the rest of the countries that will be joining this war. Moving on, we head on to Eastern Yugoslavia, or which I'm gonna call Serbia because it's so much easier. It's not Serbia, but it's easier to say Serbia. They're gonna very quickly push into southern Hungary. Austria is gonna wait because they don't want to be an aggressor in this war unless it's like, oh, free land. And so basically, it's just gonna be these three versus Hungary for now. Is what I would have said if it was those three versus Hungary. Because we're also going to see a Balkan War happening. Because obviously you can't have Serbia without Croatia fighting. Or Western Yugoslavia, sorry, it slipped out. This is Western Yugoslavia, not Croatia. Weird timelines, I know. But yeah, these two are gonna get into a conflict with each other. And so it's now Hungary and West Yugoslavia versus Eastern Yugoslavia. Just Eastern Yugoslavia is fighting both. but Romania and Slovakia are also at war with Hungary. So you're on a 2-on-1 technically, but then the rest is a 3-on-1 for Hungary. Really, I'm not gonna try and explain it because it's weird. And yeah, that's gonna do it for today's video. We're gonna wrap up both of those events in the next one. I think that's what my notes said. But yeah, we've been recording for a lot shorter than the first episode, so I don't know if it's gonna come out as well. I think this episode was honestly a much smoother ride recording wise. But once again, I do want feedback on mic quality, of course, because last time I think I fixed it, but it was pretty bad last time. And also, I want feedback on if I should keep this PNG tuber little gremlin over to the side. And that's all I can think about right now. Yeah, if you want to see more Warped Worlds, make sure you like and subscribe. Turn notifications on because I'm probably going to be uploading these 2 times a week. I've recorded this 2 days before I plan to upload it, or technically 1 day because it's a little past midnight now. But yeah, this is going up on Wednesday the 8th. So yeah, they're probably going to be 2 of these a week until it finishes, which I don't know how long it's going to be going on for. Probably not that long. It's not going to be as long as the short little Wixo series I had. It's not going to be that long, which is only 22 episodes long, but it's not going to be that long. I guarantee it, because if this series wants to be good, it can't be dragged on for a while. That's something you can do with Civilization series, but not series like this. Anyways, I'm gonna stop yapping because it's late and I don't wanna get interrupted in this last bit. I don't wanna have to edit this too much. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you all in episode 3.